And welcome to this Design for Aging competition briefing day. I'm David Calder from KTN. I won't be taking too much of your time at this point in the briefing. I'll be handing over shortly, but just before I do that, as well as welcoming you, I'd like just to run through a few quick housekeeping rules since we're on this online Zoom format. Many of you will be familiar with this by now, I'm sure, but to make sure we don't get feedback and undue noise, if you could remain on mute unless we invite people to start talking and we invite you into the conversation. There is a chat function, which you'll see at the bottom of your screens. There's also a Q&A function, but they're different. So use the chat function during the sessions by all means to talk to colleagues, exchange information and views, and also watch out for links that we might be posting in there as well. Towards the end, we'll be posting links to our Collaborators Club, for example, but there could be some others that are useful there too. And then the Q&A itself, that is what it says it is. It's for questions and answers, and we'll be coming to Q&A later on in the session. So if you could please drop questions in there that you think that you need the answers to from the panelists and the people who are talking today, that would be useful. It's best if they're not statements, but questions. Some of those we may answer you live, as it were, in real time by text, and some of them we'll choose to read out so the entire Zoom call can hear the questions and answers when we think that everyone would benefit from that particular piece of information. So other than that, it remains for me just to wish you well, enjoy the meeting, and I'll hand over now to Challenge Director for Healthy Aging, George McGuinness.
Good afternoon and welcome, and again, and really delighted by the interest you're all showing both today and in this whole series of preceding sort of events that we've been holding. I just want to say a couple of words to position the competition, and then I'll hand over to Julia and the crew to take you through the details. So it is now live, and this is really to help you get your applications going. So Natalie, if I could have the next slide, please. Just to position this, the vision, which is about delivering services and products to support people as they age, and the innovative business models that enable them to be adopted at scale. The overall challenge actually was informed by the Prime Minister's Council for Science and Technology some years ago, who had pointed out that there's been a lot of innovation, funding for innovation for products in the past, and those products have often not managed to get to scale, and they recommended a real focus on services. So what is the entire solution that will solve a problem for people as they age? Our scope, I'm sure you're aware, and Julie will cover, is covered by 7 very broad themes, loosely illustrated by the icons on the screen, but with the broad aim of helping people to remain active, productive, independent, and socially connected across the generations for as long as possible. And those of you that have heard us before will know that our principal focus has been before people need support from the formal health and social care system. But actually for this call, we're sort of creeping those boundaries a little bit, recognizing that particularly post-COVID, that there is greater potential to support people to self-care while they're managing their own conditions of one way or the other. So if I could have the next slide, please. And then just finally to position this, so the Healthy Aging Challenge actually funds a whole sort of innovation pipeline, which is supported by research, social behavioural and design research, and a community of practice, and anyone is welcome to join that community. This particular competition is, as you can see on the screen, targeted at scale-up projects. So if you're on this call with an earlier stage idea, there are still opportunities. If you're an academic thinking of a very early stage idea, there's Catalyst Awards, and our next competition for that is coming up, and we'll launch probably around January time. Our investment partnerships, we've added additional investors to our partnerships and are looking to further extend that. And there's plenty of funding available through those partners for SMEs looking to develop that. This competition sort of picks up on where we left off with our large-scale trailblazer competition. So the lessons from the Trailblazers were, I mean, we attracted huge interest. We've awarded initially 7 and down selected to 5 to go through for the full Trailblazer competition. But we noticed that a lot of the people who were applying for the Trailblazers had really good ideas, but they actually needed a bit more shaping before they would be ready to be awarded funding at the sort of level, the 6 million level that the Trailblazers were aimed at. And that's informed the thinking of the Design for Aging opportunity that we see. And Julia will also take through some of the other lessons from the Trailblazers. One is that we're keen not to have a pause between what had been a 2-stage competition. So there's a very innovative design stage gate approach to this to keep momentum going through the projects. So that sort of positions where this is and invites you to join a broader community of people interested in healthy aging. And with that, I will hand over to Julia.
Thank you, George. It's actually Natalie. I'm just going to talk you through quickly an introduction to Innovate UK and UKRI. So before we start, we form part of UK Research and Innovation, or UKRI, along with 8 other research councils, and we work with the government to invest over £7 billion a year in research and innovation. Although the research councils cover a wide range of disciplines, from biotechnology through to the humanities, they are all primarily focused on academic researchers. However, Innovate UK has a unique and critical role within the UKRI family. We are primarily focused on business-led innovation, and we support all conceivable sectors, although we do have our priority sectors. Innovate UK drives productivity and economic growth by supporting businesses to develop and realise the potential of new ideas. We connect businesses to the partners, customers and investors that can help them turn ideas into commercially successful products and services and business growth. We fund business and research collaborations to accelerate innovation and drive business investment into R&D. Our support is available to businesses across all economic sectors, value chains and UK regions. We firmly believe that innovation is at the heart of the UK's future growth and prosperity, and we're currently ranked 5th in the Global Innovation Index. I'll now hand you across to Julia and she will review the scope with you.
Thank you very much, Natalie. So if I can have the next slide, please. So welcome everyone. I know there's many of you I know who are listening in today. So thank you for your continued interest, and we're so excited to welcome you officially now that the competition is open. So Design for Aging opened yesterday. So if I can have the next slide, please, Natalie. So George has taken you through our challenges vision. So I'm going to talk specifically about what we're looking to invest in with Design for Aging. So we have 14.4 million fund available. So we're going to be making some generous awards for the right projects. We're looking to make awards of between £500,000 and £2 million. And we're looking for service-led innovations that have acquired new knowledge from interacting and operating in the market. So in terms of research stage, we term that as industrial stage research. We make awards depending on organisation size. So if you're a large organisation, we'll fund up to 50% of your project costs. If you're small or micro, up to 70%. The projects we're looking to fund can last anything between 6 months and 2 years. And after 6 months, as George referred to in the opening introduction, we're looking to apply the design stage gate. So this is to keep momentum going in projects and to make sure that you're constantly using people-centered design to evolve your service closer to a larger share of the market. So very excited to be kicking this off, and I know that we're going to get lots of really, really good entries because of the number of people that I've met already and the amazing stuff that people are doing. So if I can have the next slide, please. So in terms of profile, again, to reference pieces of the introduction that George went through in terms of our challenge vision, we're very interested in service-led innovation that enables self-care. So that could be to do with people having more choices in terms of how they choose to live independently for longer. It could be for greater autonomy in terms of citizen health and managing health and managing healthcare. We're very interested in service-led innovation that encourages sustaining physical activity, and that includes active travel. So we're very interested in people continuing to pursue leisure options that they currently enjoy and taking those healthy physical activity hobbies into later life. We are also very interested in service-led innovation that improves mental health. So lots of obvious connections with intergenerational themes and connectedness in terms of trying to bring people together, whether that's digital or whether that's in more traditional physical platforms. And we also are interested in what we bundle together as the common complaints of aging in terms of pain, hearing, eyesight, and mobility. And just to address that question that's been placed into the chat, so I can deal with that in the applicant profile. So the applicants that we are looking for, we ask for business-led projects, but consortia projects are always good because there's a number of people in the application then to address different parts of the challenge. So we're always interested in collaborative and consortia applications, but we do ask for all applications to be business-led. We're looking for service innovation. So this is about services that support people as they age in terms of the profile and the scope that I talked to a few minutes ago. So totally acknowledge that there's kind of a fine line between where products stop and services start. And I know all of those of you who I've spoken to who have a product offering, there's a service extension there. But if you're in any doubt about whether you have a product or service, please do get in touch and we can talk that through. But it's service innovation that we're looking in terms of supporting those self-care and physical activity objectives. So as always, we ask that solutions address inequalities in healthy aging. So that could well be around your business model in terms of how you intend to broker your service in the market. So that could be via local authority or NHS prescription, or a number of ways to make sure that your service is accessible to the largest number of people as they age. And in terms of scale ups, I'll just deal with that question now. So when we say that we want applicants to be able to be shaped for market readiness by the design stage gate, what we mean by that is that this competition is for services that have already been defined. So this is not a competition for ideas. We want tangible services that are already interacting with the market, have some market knowledge applied in terms of the direction that they now need to move in to take up the best market share. And when we say scale up, the reason we're using the design stage gate and the reason that we're saying that services must already be defined is because we're interested in solutions that can scale up, so can attract further forms of funding potentially later on in the course of their growth model. We're interested in services that can be shaped by the design stage gate so they can be more robust and be around in the market for longer, providing as much utility to as many for as long as possible. So in terms of assessment, we follow a standard process. We have a written application assessment stage, and then we invite a smaller number of applicants to an interview process. And if I can have the next slide, please. So this is our timeline. So we opened yesterday. The competition is open until the 17th of November. My door is open in terms of very happy to talk to you if you have questions. We also have a customer support service that's on the website when you go to the Design for Aging webpage, and we'll drop that into the chat as well so that you can take full view of that. So we're going to make our awards by the 1st of May 2022, and then we'll be looking, as I said, to invest in projects that run up to 2 years in length. So they can be less, but they have to be 6 months or more and up to the 2 years. And then we apply our design stage gate around October 2022, and we'll be giving you the results of that in November. I'm going to talk a bit more about the design stage gate and some of the support processes we have in place in terms of shepherding you through that process. So if I can have the next slide, please. So this is our design stage gate. So leading back to what George said in his introduction, the idea of this is that we keep you moving, we keep your project moving, we let you gather pace, but because we're making significant awards, we want to make sure that your journey is always taking you closer to larger market share and closer to your customer and your user. So we like to think of this stage gate process as an amplifier in terms of it enabling you your greatest possible market share. So the criteria that we're going to be looking at in terms of your service development and your customer and people-centered journey is we're going to be looking at your user engagement in terms of how you test your service, iterate your service amongst your practice community. And then we're going to be looking in terms of people-centered design at the feedback mechanisms that you use to build intelligence back into your service to develop it so that it is more popular, more usable, and more helpful to more people. And then we're going to be looking at your user base, and we're going to be looking at how your users are consuming your service, whether they enjoy it, whether they whether it's being helpful, whether it's gathering legs of its own, and more people are becoming interested in it. So we also look beyond your practice community and see whether on your project's journey that bigger areas of the market have become interested and you've been able to engage with them and perhaps expand your commercialization plans in terms of feasible market share. So with all of that design activity, we ask that you update your business plan and commercialization plans so we can get a fair view of your direction of travel in terms of your ability to scale and your ability to achieve longer term success. Now, we are in the process of approving a design stage gate awardee guide, which will be available on the website in the coming weeks. So that will give you absolute transparency over this process. And I'll also be working with successful awardees as they go into their projects to make sure that these criteria are being evidenced, that we're applying the sufficient focus, and we'll be working with you to be successful in passing this. And it's a very transparent process. And so really looking forward to working with you on that. And if you have any questions, you can contact me about it. And that, I think, can I have the next slide, please? That is it about the scope and profile of the competition, but I know many of you have already registered for our Collaborators Club, which follows directly after this event. You'll be moving from this Zoom call onto the Meeting Mojo platform. This is an opportunity, excuse me, for you to state your collaboration preferences if you're interested in potentially pursuing a collaborative application to the fund. And it's a chance to meet potential application partners. We've had a lot of interest in providing this as a bolt-on to the event today. So we hope that you'll use it and put in your collaborative preferences so that you can meet with people who you might be interested in potentially partnering with. I think Jess has just dropped the link into the chat. There we are. So it's not too late to get involved in that, and encourage you to kind of have a look at who else is applying and see whether you can get your minds together if there's opportunity to do so. So that is it from me in terms of scope and profile. I'll be helping to answer any questions at the end. And I'm now going to pass over to my colleague David at KTN. David is going to say a few words about some of the KTN support services, just to offer you a bit of a support framework going forward. So thank you, Natalie. Over to you, David.
Hello again, everyone. I haven't got too much to say here, just to reintroduce the KTN really, and say we're here to help all you SMEs out there who are looking to innovate. We are an innovation network. We can help you make connections and contacts and so on. That extends beyond this competition, of course. It's an ongoing support mechanism for all innovators out there. But also do consider contacting me about our oh, why won't that change? Oh, there we go. About our offer for a limited offer to review some of the applications. For businesses which haven't won any Innovate grants before, we do have some capacity to review your applications before you submit them. So do drop me a line about that if you want. Just to reiterate that the KTN's here to help, and we cover all sectors as well. So this is a healthy aging call, but we're active in all of the vertical pillars and all the technology areas you can imagine just about. So do bear us in mind, especially if you're looking for new connections that might not even be in your own sector or in this sector. And that is my email address, and these slides will go out after the event, so you can drop me a line and maybe we can talk about possibly reviewing these applications, or just talk generally about your innovation requirements. Thank you, Julia.
Thanks, David and Julia. So I'm now going to talk you through the eligibility criteria for this competition. So firstly, you are allowed to enter a previously submitted application into this competition. This is an application that is not materially different from one you've submitted before, but can be updated based on assessor feedback. To lead a project in this competition or apply on your own, you must be a UK registered business of any size, but you can collaborate with any UK registered business, charity, academic institution, not-for-profit or public sector organisation or RTO. You must carry out your project work in the UK and intend to exploit the results from or in the UK. The total eligible project costs must be between £500,000 and £2 million. Your project must be between 6 and 24 months in duration, and it must start by the 1st of May 2022 and end by the 30th of April 2024. These are the types of organisations that Innovate UK funds. So in applying for this competition, the lead partner needs to be a UK registered business of any size. Research organisations can collaborate with the leads, and these include universities and RTOs. And public sector organisations and charities can also collaborate with the lead applicant. The amount of funding that you will receive will depend upon the category that you fit into, and further information will be available on our website within the general guidance. On the 1st of January 2021, the UK left the EU and is no longer subject to EU laws on state aid. We now offer grants based on the new BEIS subsidy control regime, which adheres to the UK-EU Trade and Cooperation Agreement and the Northern Ireland Protocol, among other agreements. As a going concern as a business is that it's assumed you'll meet all your financial obligations when they fall due. It functions without the threat of liquidation and for the foreseeable future. You should make sure that your organisation is eligible before you submit an application, and we will carry out financial health checks on your organisation. If you are unsure of whether you are eligible to receive subsidy control, please seek independent legal advice. There is further information available on our website, and you can also contact our customer support team if you have any questions. If you are an applicant who is conducting activities that will affect the trade of goods and/or electricity between Northern Ireland and the EU, as envisaged by Article 10 of the Northern Ireland Protocol, then you must apply under European Commission state aid rules. In order to be eligible to receive state aid, you must pass the Undertakings in Difficulty test. This only applies to limited liability companies that are more than 3 years old. If you have a parent company, the test can be performed on your parent or holding company. Note that if you are successful in the competition, we will apply this test as part of our viability checks. Funding for R&D is split into the categories of feasibility studies, industrial research, and experimental development. This competition is for industrial research only. This means that for the business leading the application, out of your total project costs, you can receive up to 70% as a grant if you are micro and small, 60% if you're medium-sized, and 50% if you're a large organisation. Research organisations collaborating with the lead can get funding of up to 100% of their eligible project costs. Please remember that at least 70% of the total eligible project costs must be incurred by a business. If you have an academic or RTO within your consortium, their total project costs can add up to no more than 30% of the overall total. There is more than one research organisation within the consortium, then they would share the 30% between them. Of that 30%, you can get 80% of full economic costs if you are JES registered, and 100% if you are an RTO, charity, not-for-profit, public sector organisation, or research organisation. Research organisations are not able to lead in this competition, but they may partner in as many applications as they wish. If you choose to work with partners on your project, at least 2 organisations, including the lead, must claim funding by entering their costs into the application. And there must be evidence of a genuine collaboration. You'll need to explain in your application how all parties will contribute to the project and benefit from the collaboration. A business can be involved in up to 3 applications, but only lead on 1 application. Other businesses that aren't leading, academics, charities, not-for-profit, public sector organisations, and RTOs can collaborate on any number of applications. Innovation leads will consider your application a resubmission if it is not materially different from a previous application. Your application is classified as a resubmission if it was previously deemed out of scope for another competition. However, if you were previously ineligible, for example, having project costs over the funding limits, this would not be deemed as a resubmission. This slide gives you some examples of when we would not be able to award any funding to you. This might be because you have an overdue independent accountant's report from another Innovate UK competition, or you have failed to exploit a previously funded project, or you failed to comply with grant terms and conditions. These are the key dates to bear in mind for your competition. As Julia's mentioned, it opened yesterday, so you're now able to start to submit your applications. The closing date is the 17th of November. It is important to note that the submission deadline is 11 AM on the dot. IFS will automatically close at this time, and we would strongly recommend that you submit your application as early as possible, as traffic can be really high on deadline day. We will be holding interviews the week commencing the 10th of January 2022, and all applicants will be notified of their success or otherwise on the 21st of January 2022. We'll now go over to the Innovation Funding Service, or IFS, which is where you will submit your application. So on the Innovate UK webpage, under Search for Funding Opportunities, you will find a list of all our published competitions. Use the keyword search to find the competition that you're interested in, and you will firstly see an overview of the competition, like on the left. If you click on the title, then it will bring you to a tabbed view of the competition brief, which details the eligibility criteria, scope, key dates, information on how to apply, and other supporting information. Once you've read the brief, simply click Start a New Application. To apply for a competition, the lead applicant will need to create an account. If you've applied for a previous competition on IFS, you can simply sign in. If you've forgotten your password, please click on the Need Help Signing In or Creating an Account dropdown, and this will then bring up a Forgotten Your Password link. You can use the Companies House lookup function to search for your organisation, but if you are not on Companies House, you can enter information manually. We advise research organisations and academics to manually enter your information so that you're not listed as a business on IFS. This therefore ensures that you receive the correct funding. Once you've set yourself up on IFS, you will come to the project details. This section allows you to add in colleagues to help you complete the application. And this is also where you can invite partner organisations to join the application. Under application details, it asks for the title of your project, its duration, and the project start date. Please remember that projects must start by the 1st of May 2022. Here you will also be reminded that this is an industrial research competition, and it will ask you if your application is a resubmission. The subsidy basis question asks if your project will affect trade between Northern Ireland and the EU. The question is compulsory, and we know which subsidy rules you will be applying under. And it's really important to note that all project partners must complete this question. The Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Survey features across all of our competitions, and this helps us to address underrepresentation in business innovation. For the project summary, you'll need to provide a brief description of your project and explain what makes it innovative. This is key to setting the scene for the assessors, as it gives them an overview of your idea. The public description is another summary of your project, but this will be published if your project is successful. So please keep this in mind. Be aware of confidentiality and commercially sensitive information on here. And finally, we'll ask you to describe how your project fits within the scope of the competition. It's really important that your project is within the scope to receive funding. If the innovation lead deems it to be out of scope, you'll be made ineligible and your application will not be sent for assessment. If you are unsure as to whether or not your application is in scope for this competition, please contact our customer support team. The next section is the application questions. Question 1 is not scored, but we do ask you to list the organisations, locations of all of your project partners, including yourself. Question 2 asks what the business need, challenge, or market opportunity behind your innovation. Question 3 is with regards to what approach you will take and where will the focus of innovation be. Here, there is the option of attaching an appendix to support your answer. This can be a summary of your business plan and can include diagrams and charts. Please look out for the individual appendix restrictions, for example, the number of pages you can include. Question 4 is about your project team, their roles, and how you will work if COVID restrictions continue. This question also has an optional appendix, which can be a short summary of the main people working on your project. Question 5 asks, what does the market you are targeting look like? Question 6 asks how you are going to grow your business and increase your productivity in the long term as a result of the project. Question 7 is about what impact might this project have outside of the project team. Question 8 is about how will you manage the project effectively. You must upload an appendix to this question, and it must be a project plan or Gantt chart. Question 9 is about what the main risks are for your project. This also requires an appendix to be uploaded, and this will be a risk register. Question 10 asks what impact an injection of public funding would have on the businesses involved. And finally, question 11 asks how much will the project cost and how does it represent value for money for the project team and for the taxpayer. Aside from making note of which questions allow an appendix, please remember that each question also contains additional guidance, often in the form of bullet points. These will help you answer your questions fully, and this will help you get the maximum marks during the assessment stage. The final section to complete is the finances and the terms and conditions. So please note that you cannot claim funding if you are an overseas organisation, if you are set up as a branch, or if your company is based in Jersey. When you click on your project costs in the finances section, you will see all cost categories like labour, materials, subcontracting, etc. Under labour costs, you'll need to enter the role within the project, the gross annual salary for that role, and the days to be spent by all staff at this grade on the project. IFS will then automatically calculate the total costs. If you have multiple people in the same role, in the same salary, indicate the number of people in the role within project field. If an employee is part-time, you should enter their costs as a full-time equivalent, and you can then adjust the working days per year from this as a default. If your application is awarded funding, you will need to account for all of your labour costs. So you must keep timesheets and payroll records, and these must show the actual hours worked by individuals and paid for by the organisation. We define overheads as additional costs and operational expenses incurred directly as a result of the project. These could include additional costs for administrative staff, general IT, rent and utilities. You can select from the three options that you can see on the screen above and how you would like to calculate your overheads. For information, we class indirect or administration overheads as those costs associated with back office functions, such as HR and finance, whose primary function is to support the running of the business. They can only claim a portion of their time, and their work needs to be additional to the delivery of the project, not business as usual. Typically, these costs are not directly related to a particular product or service production. Direct overheads are costs associated with staff working directly on the project, for example, laptops, desks, or office facilities. We supply a simple form into which you can list out each type of direct overhead together with the methodology or basis of apportionment to this particular project. Remember, these overheads would not be incurred if the project doesn't happen. Under material costs, enter and describe what materials you intend to use for the project, the quantity and the cost per item. The materials listed must be project specific. Please provide as much information as possible. For example, just putting consumables at £50,000 doesn't provide enough detail, and you will be required to provide more information to this project team if you are successful. Any items that would usually depreciate as per your company's policy should be listed in capital usage, which is in the next slide. And note that any materials supplied by associated companies or subcontracted from other consortium members must be listed at cost, excluding any profit element or margin. Here, you'll need to describe how you're using the equipment, whether it is new or existing, the new purchase cost, how long you're depreciating it over, and the residual value at the end. These calculations will need to be in line with your accounting practices. If the cost of your subcontractors is going to be significant, then you will need to justify who, why, and what you need them for, both here and within your application. It's important that you justify the use of subcontractors within your application, especially those that are non-UK based, as the assessors do not see this level of financial detail, they only see the total cost. If you are using a parent or sister company, please ensure that you list at cost and do not include any profit. For travel and subsistence, you would need to include such things as any essential meetings that need to happen during the project. You cannot include any sales or marketing activity, as this is ineligible, and travel costs should be at economy travel only. You should be prepared to provide a breakdown of these costs if the project finance reviewer asks for more details. For example, they might require you to split the trip into subsistence, accommodation, and travel components. And finally, other costs is where you will include any other costs relating to the project that cannot be included into the other categories. For example, training directly attributable to the project. If you are a micro, small, or medium-sized business, then you can include patent filing costs for new IP up to £7,500. And if you are unsure what you can put here, please don't hesitate to contact our customer support team. Please just ensure that there's no double counting and that all costs are justified. These will be reviewed later on if you are successful. As previously mentioned, the level of funding awarded to each organisation on the application will depend upon the type of organisation that you are. IFS will calculate your grant percentage based on the answers that you have input. As you can see here, any business in the application, including the lead, can claim up to 70% of their eligible project costs if they're classed as a micro or small organisation, up to 60% if they're medium size, and 50% if they're a large organisation. Research organisations, public sector organisations, and charities performing non-economic activity can claim up to 100% of their project costs or 80% full economic costs for GES registered organisations like universities. And the key here is whether each partner is conducting economic or non-economic activities within the project. Here is an example to show how the funding rules might work for a project with 5 partners. So we have 3 businesses, a university and a catapult, which is classed as an RTO. In the third column, you can see that each of the project costs, which total £500,000. The fourth column indicates that the maximum amount of grant that they can claim based on their organisational size. So the 2 medium-sized businesses can claim up to 60% of their costs, and the large business can claim 50% of their costs. For the university, their costs will go through GES, which will deduct 20%, leaving their total costs at £75,000, and 100% of this £75,000 can be claimed for. And the RTO can similarly claim 100% of their project costs. So on the far right, you can see the column that indicates the amount of grant that each organisation can receive and the amount that they will have to contribute towards the project. Bearing in mind that research organisations can take no more than 30% of the overall project costs, the university and catapult in this application together hit the maximum allowance. Combined, they have a project cost of £150,000, which is exactly 30% of the total costs. So in this scenario, they would not be able to claim any more than what they already have. So we've talked about GES registered institutions. So here's a bit more information. Academic partners in the consortium will need to complete a GES form, which they should be familiar with. The form validates costs for us. It should automatically calculate full economic costs and tell the academic partner what costs they can include in the application. They can then claim 100% of the costs as calculated by GES. Innovate UK does not have access to the GES system to be able to extract this information, which is why it needs to be sent through to us. When they've completed the GES form, academics will need to include their unique reference number on IFS and input their figures. Please ensure the figures you provide are identical. The form must be with council status and uploaded to IFS as a PDF. When you have finished your application and every section is marked as complete, you can review and submit your application. This is a summary of the project costs available to all organisations in the project. You will not be able to see the breakdown of anyone else's costs. Please make sure that your total cost figure, circled in red on the slide, meets the eligibility criteria, and that is that it must be between £500,000 and £2 million. For collaborative applications, IFS will highlight to the lead applicant any partner who has outstanding project finances to complete. All finances must be included in the application before the lead applicant can submit. It will also check that your research participation costs are within the required limits. IFS does not validate your project cost. It is your responsibility to ensure that all costs are within the eligible total project costs as stated in the brief. If you find you need to edit your application once it's been submitted, then this is possible. First, you need to reopen your application. So on your IFS dashboard, you will see the option to reopen as shown on the slide. The option to reopen is also visible from your application status page. Once reopened, you can make changes to your application. When you've finished, please remember to resubmit. Just click on the green Review and Submit button, review your application once more, and then click the final Submit button. We are able to track site usage and submission uploads, and we can see that people often leave parts of their application and its submission to the very last minute. This means that if you encounter technical problems too close to the submission deadline, there is a chance that you won't be able to submit on time, in which case there is nothing we can do. We do strongly recommend submitting your application in good time. And if you do come up against technical issues, please contact our customer support team well before the closing deadline so that we can help you. Then, as long as your application meets all our eligibility criteria and aligns with the scope, it will be sent for assessment, which will begin shortly after the competition closes. This assessment will be performed by up to 5 independent assessors who are experts in this field. They will provide an overall score and feedback on your application. Assessors tell us that they want clarity, detail, justification, and to see why the applicant has presented an exciting innovation where public funding will make a real difference to developing their idea. They want to see that they've got the right people in the right approach to run a successful project and exploit the results. As stated previously, ensure that you answer all the questions in the guidance so that the assessor can award you the maximum marks. Even if you have a fantastic idea, if you don't answer the questions fully, you won't be scored highly. So make sure your application reads well. You want to keep the assessors engaged and interested in your proposal. Here at Innovate UK, we do check the scores and feedback given by the assessors. And if we find that one assessor has scored particularly harshly or favourably, in contrast to the other 4 assessors, then we will review their score and feedback to ensure that it's fair and that they've made valid points. If we feel their score is unjust, then we can remove them and recalculate the average score. The feedback given to you by the assessors is meant to be constructive and highlight both the positive and negative aspects of your application. Since all assessors are independent, you may find that they give conflicting feedback, but this is simply a reflection of different people's interpretations of your project. You may also find that you get good feedback and high scores, but are not awarded the funding. This can be because the proposal unfortunately fell below the funding threshold. After assessment has finished, we generate a panel sheet that collates all of the information, and what you see on the slide is an excerpt from this sheet. The left-hand column shows the average score for the different applications, and the highlighted column shows the score spread, which is the difference between the top and bottom scores. If the score spread is 25 or more, then we'll investigate more closely to see if there is an outlier. The next 2 columns let us know whether an application has been marked out of scope or not recommended for funding by any of the assessors. If there is a 2 or more in either of these columns, then we review the application's detailed scoring and feedback to check why this has happened and make sure that it is justified. This slide shows the breakdown of an application's scores. The green box highlights Assessor 1's score. The purple box highlights all 5 scores for question 5. On the far right, we look for the difference of 20 or more with the assessor's totals scores identifying an outlier. At first glance, we would consider Assessor 3 to be an outlier with a score of 62, as this is more than 20 away from the other assessor's scores. We would investigate if this low score was sufficiently backed up by their feedback. If the feedback doesn't align with the scores given for each question, then we would remove this assessor's score and recalculate the average. At the end of the application process, when all applicants have been notified of their success or otherwise on the 21st of January next year, all scores and feedback will become available on your IFS dashboard, and you'll be notified when this can be viewed. If you are invited to interview, we will expect you to be available during the week of the 10th of January 2022. Once invited, IFS will reveal the assessor's feedback and scores for your application, and you'll have the opportunity to send a response to this feedback through IFS to the panel who will be interviewing you. This is optional, but any concerns raised by the assessors will be questioned in the interview. You'll be able to bring up to 5 people to interview with you, ideally 1 person from each organisation within your consortium. You'll be asked to give a 20-minute presentation with no more than 20 PowerPoint slides, and this will be followed by a 30-minute Q&A, where the panel will ask you questions about your applications. Please note that timings will be strictly kept on the day. Following the interviews, the successful applicants will be chosen, and if you are unsuccessful, we hope that the assessor's feedback will be useful to you in developing your idea, and maybe you'll be able to apply into another competition. If you are successful, you will be assigned a delivery executive and you will proceed to the project setup stage. You will have an initial 30 days in which to complete your project details, and then a further 60 days in which to complete project setup, including signing and returning your grant offer letter. Project setup will be done through IFS, so please look out for emails or requests for information from IFS, and do ensure that your contact details are kept up to date. We'd recommend that you regularly check your junk folders too. You will be told what information you need to provide, and we ask you to comply as quickly as possible so there are no delays to your project start. All grants are paid quarterly in arrears, and claims can only be made for costs incurred and paid between your project start and end dates. And you will also get a visit from your appointed monitoring officer. So that brings us to the end of the briefing. If you haven't done so already, please do add any questions you have into the Q&A box, and we'll try and answer them. I will just pause on this contact slide. So should you have any questions following the briefing, this is just a reminder that you can get in touch with our customer support team, the KTN, or Innovate. And I'm just going to hand back over to Julia before we go through the Q&A. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Thank you. Yeah, just a quick check-in before we move to Q&A. I can see there's some questions in the question and answer box. If anyone doesn't know how to join the Collaboration Club or wants to, please drop in the Q&A or chat, because KTN, Abby, etc. Sorry, Jess and David are here to help you if you want to register for that. So just a quick note on Collaborators Club if you want to join it. You can take some guidance here if you're kind of not sure how to go, because we're coming off this platform, and that once we've done the Q&A, and then we'll go over to Collaborators Club. So just wanted to raise that bit, and then over to Q&A. David, are you happy to chair the Q&A, and let's see what people might need to know to kind of assist? Thanks.
Sure thing, Julia. The questions will go to various. I think, Natalie, you'll get quite a few of them, actually. Some for Julia on scope. Some we've been answering as we go along in the Q&A with a text response. So I've collected some of those for live asking, if you like. So one of them, the first question that I'd like to share with the group really is a fairly straightforward one, thing, but it's quite interesting in that is there a minimum number of employees that a business has to employ to be considered to be small or medium? I'm presuming small or micro. I don't know, Natalie, if that might be something for you.
Yeah, within the guidance on the IFS portal, there is some information as to what's considered a small company, a medium-sized company, and a large company. So we direct you to the IFS portal.
Yeah, the other part of that question was to do with the grant and the percentage of the grant for the eligible cost. But I think that was quite well covered, Natalie, in your slides. So we'll leave that one. Another question here to do with scope, I think, Julia, and it's really essentially the company concerns developing a product for families and carers, tools and services to support them rather than supporting the cared for. So the question is, would something supporting carers, informal carers particularly, be in scope, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're looking for is things that support those key objectives in terms of self-care, and obviously a huge part of self-care is that informal care network, family and friends, and then obviously there's a very big positive mental health angle on the informal care networks, family and friends, and also a very big intergenerational theme there as well. So yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And you mentioned dementia in there as well, and that was another question. Would dementia care be something that's considered in scope in terms of mental health services?
Absolutely, and again, the very strong self-care angle to that too, because I know from my work and also personal experience that autonomy and dementia is something else that we need to look at as a society. And the question in terms of, I saw something in the chat about kind of like age boundaries. So I wanted to say a piece about that. I want to make it very, very clear that this fund will invest in solutions that address the challenges of aging. It's absolutely not about saying this is an aging threshold and we only want to look at solutions that help this small demographic of older people. What we want to invest in are solutions that help people as they age and help with that continuum into older age, so people can be as independent, choose their own care options, autonomy over their own health for as long as possible. So it's not about products for a particular age boundary or services for a particular age boundary. It's about those supporting healthy aging from working life into later life. So there's no kind of age threshold. I think that was something that came up in the Q&A.
It did, yes. So it was quite specific as well, asking down to the age of, say, 35, Julia, or something.
Yeah.
I know that we're trying to avoid age brackets, but that is quite young. So that would be
absolutely. If it's as a healthy aging context, it is in scope, provided it has a strong service focus, then it's in scope.
I think just a sort of slight extension of that would be, there are some of the conditions which are more or less guaranteed to affect people, such as menopause. Would those be in scope as well, do you think?
Yeah, I've been approached by a couple of solutions in that area, and absolutely, and if in any doubt, I'm going to put my email in the chat and it's in these slides. We can talk one-to-one or with the consortia and be absolutely sure.
We haven't got a huge length of time for the Q&A, so there were several questions around the next one, Julie. I think you probably know what's going to come out next. It's to do with the stage at which you're looking for services and their development. TRL has been mentioned a couple of times by people asking questions as well. And this one's probably quite an interesting one. If I read this as a sort of catch-all. So can you clarify the definition of a tangible service that's already interacting with the market? So does it have to be in any way commercialized, or can that interaction be pre-market, if you like? So maybe it's a development thing or user groups or something like that. What can you help just shape that a little bit more?
Yeah. So the point that I'm trying to make is that this absolutely isn't like a design sprint competition where people start with an idea and see how far they can get it. It's absolutely to fund initiatives that have already been conceived, are already defined, and a customer is already interacting with the service. And obviously, a large part of this discrete project, as in the Design for Aging award, would be to develop that, to bring on more customers, more target market. But we want to invest in things, in services that have gained knowledge that has been gleaned from the market, not just by academic research.
Okay.
And obviously there's all sorts of possibilities to get a supporting research angle with that application, as Natalie went through in terms of collaborative partners and consortia. So it's just that this is absolutely, we need that industrial level of knowledge in terms of knowledge gained from the market, in terms of being able to apply the appropriate utility from the stage gate to help people get further.
But it wouldn't need to be the kind of the full interaction through the final business model. It's just interaction in terms of knowledge exchange, isn't it? It's not a commercial.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
Yeah,
very
yeah.
good.
Doesn't need to be like a full commercial relationship. No.
Very good. Okay, there's one here which is I don't know how long we've got now. We're at 15:01. So one company's more on the product side. They're an engineering and materials design company, and they're looking to tailor existing mobility products or product to serve the elderly better, older people better. So what I'm thinking there is that sounds very product heavy. If there was a service wrap, perhaps, I don't know, would you like to speak to that a little bit, Julia?
Yeah, I've spoken to a few potential applicants that have product in the way that you described, but no doubt there is a service extension to that kind of model, which would be the area of interest in terms of self-care or enhancing mobility or supporting independent and active travel, etc. So with every product, there's always a service story, and it's the service that we're interested in, and appreciate that the boundary can be quite blurred between product and service. And again, happy to book time with people if they want a bit more clarity. But we would not invest in someone who is manufacturing walking frames per se. But if there was a service that span out of that helped provide self-care, independence, then that would be the piece that we'd be interested in.
Can someone remind me what time we've got left? Because I've got a couple of other smaller points I'd like to raise, but it sort of depends on how much. What's the
yeah, no, we're okay for another 10 minutes because we've put in a break before Collaborators Club.
Good stuff.
And so we're okay for another 10 minutes. We're fine.
So there was a question which I think we can pick up, or I can pick up as well, which is to do with will there be any more interaction opportunity, Q&A and so on like this with us, with the kind of people who are, or with you in particular, Julia, and the team at Innovate UK. And I've already said that in the chat that there is, of course, the customer support address and phone number there, but is there anything else planned that you know of? I mean, that's basically what I would gather would be the limit of further interaction would be via that link.
If it's down to, I think there's a couple of things that I would say if people are concerned that they might not be in scope, they can use my email address to contact me and have that time to talk about whether it is in scope. And then obviously you've kindly offered that review service where you have bandwidth. And there are a couple more events, but the next events are quite regionally specific, so they wouldn't be open to everyone. So I think if between customer support, me and KTM, we'll be able to get through most of the queries.
There were also quite a lot of questions which have been answered in the chat already by Abby to do with applying for these grants if you're already involved in Innovate UK funded activity. I think it might be worth just explaining to the wider audience how that does work and where, you know, how many grants a company or organizations or partners can be involved with at any one time. So I don't know, Natalie or Abby, I don't know if you'd like just to say a few words about that.
Yeah, so if you've got another ongoing project, I don't think we can say that you shouldn't apply into this one at all. Obviously you'd have to make sure that costs you've claimed for previously you're not claiming for again, or there's no overlap like that. And you know, there is criteria in the brief which says that you must have adhered to grant terms and conditions previously. You must have you know, fully exploited your grant previously. So we want to see that you are using grant money effectively and you're following all the rules type of thing. So obviously, so if you follow all those criteria, and if projects potentially overlap, our project finance reviewers will obviously be looking as well to see that you can fund both the projects, because obviously this project does require your own contribution as well. So you would have to be able to manage the two projects at the same time potentially, but it's not a no that you can't apply to this one as well.
Thank you. Subcontractors often come up, they have come up on this call as well. And one of the popular questions I've been asked over the years is to do with subcontractors that are based outside of the UK. Now, again, Abby's already kindly answered this one I think it's worth clarifying that too, because it's quite a popular question. So what is the position for subcontractors that are not within the UK?
So again, they're not a definite no. We would prefer you to use UK subcontractors, obviously. If there's a very good reason that you can't use a UK subcontractor, and you can fully explain why you can't, and you justify fully why you need to use a particular contractor overseas, then this can be fine, but it will need a lot of justification.
Thank you. There's one question here which relates more to the structure of the funding platform than directly to the competition. It's to do with the devolved administrations. So the particular company concerns registered in Wales. I think there may be some confusion because of I think there is some involvement from Scottish Government in this particular programme. So I don't know, Julia, maybe it will come to you. Can you just explain how, or if at all, there's any impact from people's location within the devolved administrations or not in terms of applying to this competition?
Yeah, well, we are, and I've just seen Marcia drop something about the Wales event in the chat, actually. So Marcia is with us in the background here today. So yeah, we are. One thing that we always try and do with all our competitions is encourage uptake from all the regions across the UK, including. So we don't just look at devolved administrations. Obviously, we look, all the way across the UK to make sure that we're representative, and that's very, very important to us. We are working specifically with the Design for Ageing Fund, with devolved administrations in terms of looking at some co-funding arrangements. So absolutely, at the moment, based on the kind of competition run up, I'd say that we're pretty well represented across the UK, but there is a specific Wales event coming up next week, and we did a specific event for Scotland at the end of last month, and then David, you and I did a Northern Ireland event last week. So yes, absolutely, there's opportunities for every single region to be represented, and you're not too late for the Wales event.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't. Sorry, Julia, have you finished? No,
I have. Yep.
Sorry. Mm-hmm. So from the point of view of the applicant, there isn't anything special they need to do depending on where they are. They just apply. Everyone applies the same way. The system doesn't need to know that you're in Wales or in Scotland or in Northern Ireland, does it?
No, and it's based on quality. It's a quality threshold.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it for the questions, to be honest. So we've covered almost everything that's been asked. The rest of them are more process driven around Meeting Mojo, which I think we've been answering as we go along. And there is no plenary. There's a question from one of the delegates about is there any plenary stuff or any more activity on Meeting Mojo? And the answer is no. It's purely an interactive system for you to meet people that you've pre-selected, and you could have been doing that and can still be doing that now, I believe. So I think we're almost ready to get across onto that platform. Unless you want to say anything else, Julia?
No, I'm just wondering whether Jess, we can just stay on for 5 minutes in case anyone who after the break wants to go over to Meeting Mojo in case they have any queries. If we just stay on, I think we've addressed all of them. The link's gone in a few times, hasn't it?
Yeah, I can stick around. We can end the recording and I can stay here for a bit.
Yeah, and I'll stay on with you, Jess. And just to, there's a question from Nadine. David, can we just take that?
Nadine. Oh yes, so yeah, so this is another, it's probably a product versus service question more than anything else, because I think we've covered the demographic, the age grouping, and this company's developed a product which is intended to feed children. I think I've heard of it before, actually, Nadine. And I think that they found that people have picked it up and started feeding elderly people using the same thing, where they are, swallowing difficulties and so on. And they're planning to establish a new company specifically to address that market. Would it be considered eligible in this case? It's obviously got some traction in one market, moved to another. So yeah, is that the one you mean?
I think so. It's from a lady called Nadine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, Nadine, you can apply as a new company. You'll just have to make your case that you've got a strong enough application if it's an extension, rather than an extension into a different sector rather than in your core sector. That's fine.
So that is, we have kind of covered the product service differentiation already a couple of times, I think, Julia. So that products are eligible, are they not? I mean, they're eligible if they're providing a service to this sector that we're looking at.
Yeah, if there's a service wrapper around that product, then it's eligible. If in any doubt, make contact.
Mm-hmm. So something which was a pick and use, like something that's available straight from, say, an Amazon type store, might not be, if that was the route to market, whereby there's no service, it's just a fire and forget from the manufacturer, that wouldn't be in scope.
No, it wouldn't. No.
Okay.
No.